Pete Townsend. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Looking back at those
I just remembering the last time that I saw you, there was a bit of sex and drugs and rock and roll going on, as I remember.
Where was that?
At Midge's house. We were actually playing charades.
Yes, I mean, not exactly sex, drugs and rock and roll. I think it'd been Monopoly before
Well,
that.
somebody
It went
might
on
have had sex. Somebody
wasn't
might
me
have
that
had.
particular night.
Wasn't
I can
me.
tell you that right now.
Well, you know, all that sex and drugs and rock and roll stuff, I just love it. I mean, I love it. When's it coming back? I want to know.
Any moment now. Just keep sitting there, because I tell you, Mike Alexander and the boys, they're into it.
Oh, good.
But when you think about those chaps, those 4 smart mods that you were, who in the early days, driven to gigs by your mum, Betty, from time to time, when did all the guitar bashing start?
Who badly needs a new car at the moment, my mum.
Does she? Yeah. She's been driving you around all these years. How did it evolve? How did it go away from that and get into something that was so wild?
Well, you know, we were one of the first bands of the second wave of the great second wave of popular music. Well, a lot of people don't think it was a great second wave. They think it was an awful second wave. I mean, my father was a musician, my mother was a singer. They were of the dance band era, and I grew up with all the wonderful music of show tunes and jazz and everything else. And what rock and roll did was it had a different function other than entertaining. It had a social function. It was about reflecting what the audience were feeling. A lot of the violence and the aggression was a display, but it was meant to mirror the feelings that people had inside at the time. A feeling of not having a purpose in life.
Your generation.
My generation, which I think
you're reflecting.
You know, it was very serious, and I think that. You know, when I look at myself as a young man talking, you know, I can remember that. As much as I joked about it, I really took the job of speaking for my generation very seriously. Less so today.
But having said at the time, I hope I die before I get old, I mean, it did become the slogan for a generation. How close have you actually come to doing just that?
I've had a few serious moments of being brought back from the other side, I suppose, yeah.
Nearly did, absolutely. Yeah. Become a sort
you know,
of
not
prophecy.
Always because of bad behaviour, often because other people were forcing me to do things I didn't want to do.
Do you think that happened because it all happened very quickly and that you were very young, or it was all part of that generation
No,
still?
I think I was... there were 2 things going on. I was actually quite a good boy, really. I really was. Keith Moon was the guy that got the headlines for being a wild man, and in the background I had a lot to do. There wasn't really enough time to go wild. I had a family. I'm still married to the same woman that you played charades with, Karen, and we've got a little boy now that's 6, so my life hasn't changed very much. I was very busy. It was a hard life. What happened was it became too much for me, and my publicised difficulties, principally with alcohol, were to do with the fact that I used to get drunk rather than face the reality of the fact that we were past it. And I think this was around sort of 78, 79. You know, rock and roll is a medium for, I believe, for if not for young people, certainly you have to be dealing with the issues that young people are dealing with.
But back in '69, when you wrote Tommy, there had already been major hits. What got you into the whole notion, the whole new idea, as it was then, of writing a rock opera?
We were pretty desperate at the time. I think we'd had a string of pop singles that were all hits in the UK, some in Europe, and then suddenly we were flopping. And we put out one record that should have been a #1 in the UK, called I Can See for Miles, didn't succeed. It got to like number 8 or something, and I thought, God, this is the best song I've ever written. I can never do better than this. How come it's not a huge hit? And I realised that I had to do something pretty different to attract attention. You know, we were this band that used to, as you showed, smash up our guitars and wear funny clothes and get into trouble. How would I get people's attention again? And I realised that I had to swing the other way and start to get very serious and show off my skills as a storyteller.
How much of Tommy is you, or was you?
You know, I've realised since the show has been in its theatrical incarnation rather a lot, but I don't know that that's important. I think what's important is that Tommy is a piece which is always it's always resonated with our audience. And so if it's about me, it's also about a lot of people, you know, post-war kids.
What did you think of Ken Russell's interpretation of it in the movie in '75?
I abandoned that project about 2/3 of the way through, and I mean, I kind of emotionally left it. I didn't abandon it, I stayed with it. It was very successful commercially, and I love Ken Russell's work. And I think that, I'm being defensive. I love it, but I know that not everybody does.
Yeah.
I love it. But it's not what we're doing with the theatre show.
So why, when you felt that you could get close to it all again and put it on the stage, why did you stage it first in America?
You know, really, I suppose because The Who's career never stopped in America. To this day, you know, when I walk through the streets of New York, I'm recognised and held with extraordinary affection. I think the American audiences are more loyal to people that have become celebrities through careers in show business. I think over here we're a bit more matter-of-fact about it. You know, people are very friendly towards me here. You know, if they see me in Sainsbury's or whatever, they say, "Hello, Pete."
But there must be something quite refreshing about that as well, really.
We got the money there, is what I'm saying, is that we were able to get the money to put the show on there. Maybe we could have got the money here, I don't know, but the main thing is that the show was developed in a theatre called La Jolla down in San Diego, which is a kind of like a, you know, almost like a Royal Shakespeare Company theatre, and lots of energy went into it.
Yes. How has it changed? Have you added anything new for the stage production?
We've added a couple of new songs, one of which we're going to hear today, called I Believe My Own Eyes.
Why did you put that in?
You know, what actually happened is that on the album, the original album, there were lots of bits missed out. This was for the psychedelic era, you know. It was partly deliberate and partly just we were in a hurry, so we couldn't fix it all. But when we put the show together for the stage, it had to work. These were real people up there. These weren't 60s shadows. These were real people. A real Tommy, a real mum, a real dad, a real lover, a real Uncle Ernie. Most of all, Tommy as a child is a real little child on the stage, and suddenly the whole thing becomes very big and touching and moving. So about 2/3 of the way through the play, you know, Tommy's out there being a pinball champion, you know, like a kind of rock star. And you wonder what's happened to the parents. Yeah. You know, they were lovers, they were young lovers. You asked the question, and this song is supposed to let you know what they're going through and what their problems are.
And do you think because of that, it sort of, not brings it up to date, but gives it more relevance for people?
You know, I hope so. I hope also that the work that we've done on the book, what they call the book in musicals, the script, the story, has actually shown that there has always been a story, I believe an important story, behind Tommy all along, which a lot of hip people in the 60s got right from the beginning. If you weren't into The Who, or if you weren't into the idea of rock opera, or if you didn't want to buy into The Who's kind of trendiness idea, or pretentiousness at the time, as it's often put, then you didn't look any further. But there is a story there, and it's a story about what it's like to live in the post-war period, both to be young as parents immediately after the war, like my mother and father, and also to be the child of parents immediately after the war. A whole new set of problems had to be overcome, and that's what this piece is about.
Well, I think this is the perfect moment to bring in your new leading lady, new stage star. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kim Wilde. Look at this gorgeous frock! Kim, you look stunning.
Oh, thanks.
You look like Grace Kelly.
Oh,
I was expecting Tommy's mum to come in looking sort of angst-ridden, looking somewhat downtrodden. Forget all that.
She does get quite angst-ridden, you know, she's got a lot on her plate, but she starts off at 19 and she only ages to 35. So, you know,
That's quite acceptable.
It's totally acceptable.
Right, now, did you get offered this part on a plate from Pete? Did he call you up one day and say, "Hi, Kimmy, fancy playing Mrs. Walker"? What happened?
Well, I hadn't met Pete before this anyway. I got sent the script and the CD, and I was immediately interested because I loved it as a kid. We had the album at home, and I was a big fan of the album. So that's what sort of drew me to it initially. And I was looking for a change and another challenge. And then they said, "Do you want to do the audition?" So I went to the audition, and that's the first time that I met Pete.
You had to actually audition for this role. Had you ever done an audition in your life before?
No.
Tell us, so Pete, you were there at the audition.
She was stunning.
You look bored. You did. I have to say,
that's the chess player's face that one has to have at auditions, because you don't want to really give too much away to anybody, really, and you want the person that's doing the audition to feel that they've done it and not somebody that's sitting there kind of going, "Yeah, Kitty's great." And you were stunning, I think. I mean, really quite moving, I found it, because it was quite obvious from the minute that Kim walked in that she was going to be able to act. And that's the thing. Everybody knows she can sing. Everybody knows that she's wonderful looking and can move and everything, and has an auspicious career behind her. But it's just this question mark: can she act? And it was quite clear that she can act very well, and will get better.
Is this going to mark a whole change of direction for you in life? Do you think that you'll always want to act after this, as well as sing?
I really don't know.
You wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't think about. I didn't sort of do this as a sort of way of, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't like a career move. It's not a career move. I'm doing it because I love Tommy and I want to be in Tommy, and because I love singing, and you know, I'm not sort of doing it to try and get somewhere else. I'm doing it because I want to be here right now.
Now, we keep reading in the press that you are feeling very good about life at the moment. It's been said, I quote, I don't know if it's true, that you feel like you're reaching the peak of your life right now.
Yeah.
Why is that happening now, Kim? What's made that happen now for you?
I think, you know, I got famous very young. I was 20 and I worked very hard at my career until I was 30, and I focused very much in on my career, and I realised at around about 30 that I'd focused too much on my career, and in the last 5 years I've set out to balance my life, and I've achieved that in various different ways. I won't go on about it, but I have. And now there's a balance, and now my career means more and I enjoy it more. And my life means more, and the two sort of complement each other.
Now, you both have, Pete, you were saying about your own musical background. Obviously, Kim, your background is exactly the same, very, very musical. Then you both went off to art college for a while and then came back to music.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I mean, there's sort of parallel lines here. How important was family involvement to you both? How important was it to you?
It was very important to me, and I'm sure it's important to Kim too, even today.
And to you as well, Kim. So they'll all be there on the first night. On March the 3rd.
They'll probably be there every night next year, so they'll be living in the theatre.
They'll be bloody well paying. Tickets.
Oh, it's true. I'd just like to add that
See what's happened to me? I've become cynical.
No, I just would like to remind all my friends that I do have to pay for all the tickets. So stop asking me for freebies. That'd be terrible. They just kind of like phone say, "Hello, I'm Kim."
Now, I assume because the whole family are going, you've got a much younger sister, I know that. It's a family show. It's a show that you've already given that impression that you've almost rounded it off, not rounded it off, but given it a much more broad approach by putting in an extra song, for example. Is it something that everybody's going to be able to come along and relate to in some way, whether you're a mother or a child or whatever?
I think so. Absolutely, without doubt. I mean, for me as a child, it worked at all kinds of levels, almost like a sort of fairy story. I mean, I didn't really understand some of the complexities and some of the sort of darker moments of it when I was 12 or 13, but I was very drawn to it. It had a lot of passion, a lot of power, a lot of mystery. And so I think, you know, for young people, it will be enchanting and mysterious. And for older people, of course, they'll enjoy listening to those fantastic songs again. And there are some superb actors and actresses.
How are rehearsals going?
Beautifully directed and staged, and it just is.
Are you enjoying it then?
Yeah, it's a real feast of delight. No, it's gorgeous.
Yes. As rehearsals progress, how much are you looking forward to or feeling a bit daunted about the first night?
eek. It's a bit eekish. I don't think about
I mean,
that.
is it more eek-ish than, say, the first night of a tour? I mean, the first night when you were out there with Michael Jackson or whatever. Does it actually...
It'll probably be the same thing. I was terrified the first time I opened for Michael Jackson. I was terrified the first time that I hosted a TV show. I'll be terrified.
But it's probably brilliant.
Yeah,
I wish you luck. It'll be fine.
Oh, don't get too gushing now. You'll spoil all that stuff at the audition. All that Mr. Laid Back at the audition. Well, we're going to hear the new song, a bit of a premiere exclusive that we have today in a little while. But thanks for the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Townsend, Kim Wilde.